Hello, welcome again at a new Workplace Ninja Netherlands podcast. At a brand new series, we will kick off our What's New from this moment onwards for the next year, hopefully. Every month, we will do a recording about the What's New within Intune, within Entra, probably some security features in Defender as well. But let's see what we can give you as a listener for new content in the products that we use in our daily job. So please welcome our guests, hosts, whatever. I have Peter Dalmans, Kenneth van Surksum, and Joost Glijsteen with me. My name is Frans Oudendorp, and we will do the Workplace Ninja Netherlands podcast. So welcome, guys.
Thank you. Good to be back.
And new initiative, Joost. What was the reason that we do that stuff?
We want to inform our community about everything what's new in Intune, all the other topics as well. Get you more onboarded, what's happening, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we will try to do that structural every month. We need to pick a certain date that we do this, but I will describe that in the description as well, so you know when there is a new video. And for that, please subscribe to our channels and see what new content is coming. To kick off, let's start with Entra. What's new in Entra in the last few months? Kenneth, what was the most important thing for you in Entra that was coming through?
Yeah, I think the most important thing currently is actually the fact that Microsoft will start enforcing MFA in order to access the admin portals. And that is even outside of conditional access. So if you have like a good conditional access design, you already encounter for MFA, of course, for your admin accounts. But in this case, also accounts not affected by conditional access will be forced to start using MFA. And that's especially important for accounts you normally hardly use, which are your break class accounts.
Yeah.
So actually, when the news became concrete, I started buying these things. You probably know what they are, the FIDO2 security keys, in order to start protecting my break class accounts with phishing-resistant MFA. There are, of course, other methods to do MFA, but in the end, I think the phishing-resistant MFA option should be something you should go for. And make sure that you're not using FIDO2 security keys with biometrics, for example. Make sure that you have a procedure on where to store the PIN in order to access the FIDO2 security key, and do that for all the tenants that you are managing. So if you have only one tenant, I think you are finished quite fast. But if you're, for example, like an MSP and managing break class accounts for multiple customers, there's some work to do, and you have until October 16th. So there is still some time left. But of course, it starts with buying the FIDO2 security keys.
Can you still exclude accounts from the overall enablement?
No,
so
there is
accounts.
no opt-out anymore. So you really need to start implementing this. There is an option to be, how should I say it, a little bit postponed in the rollout of this functionality by doing a request to Microsoft. But in the end, they will start enforcing it. So I don't think there is a reason you should really act on it. Again, also be aware of the fact that, for example, if your break class account after October 16th doesn't have any MFA method, and you start logging in, you will be required to go through the MFA enrollment process. But you should really ask yourself whether you want to wait on that, because probably if you need a break class account, you're probably too late already. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, so please make sure that you have some MFA protection on your class accounts. Preferably, from my point of view, make sure that it's a phishing resistant method. But again, any MFA is better than none. So there are other ways to do it as well in order to meet the requirements before October 16th.
Yeah, but
Uh,
you mentioned phishing resistant MFA with the FIDO keys, which is really important for you break the class accounts, because if for some reason MFA doesn't work, and
Yeah,
it happened a couple of years ago, then you are screwed, because if you're using Microsoft MFA or not a different MFA from the rest of the organization for
indeed.
your break class accounts, then you're yeah,
Yeah.
you're not able
This
to.
is actually the only way to make sure that you have less dependencies on any service which can go down in the Microsoft
Yeah,
ecosystem. And the FIDO2 gives you the best chance to actually be able to log on in the end. Yeah.
exactly.
is this a bigger topic that we can go a little bit deeper in the next recording? Probably. Is that an idea?
Yeah, sure. Actually, the whole phishing resistant logins, what's going on there, what the next big thing is actually, because yeah, we have phishing resistant MFA now in order to do the authentication theft, to say so. But we are now facing a new threat, which is the token theft of access token or refresh tokens. And we see more and more attacks on that part as well. Yeah.
So let's do our next recording a little bit deep dive with some other things as well on the MFA thing on the admin portals. Are there any other things left that takes you that take your attention within Entra?
Yeah, well, of course, looking at the conditional access part, we actually see a more evolvement of what the possibilities are there. So I think what I see now is that we can now start device code login flow. That's actually the login flow where you log into a device which normally doesn't have a keyboard and mouse. Think about Teams, room devices, and stuff like that, which usually, in order to log on, display like a code. And that code can be used to log in on another device and do the login on continue actually the authentication process on that other device. But unfortunately, that login code flow is being misused by attackers as well. So therefore, I think it's best to create a conditional access rule to by default block that way of signing in and use an exception group at the moment that you really need it. Because adding Teams room devices is not something that you are doing on an hourly basis. That once everything is done, that's more like incident based, to say so. So yeah, also on the conditional access part, we see a lot of evolvement, things going on. We have some other options now to require sign in every time with the sign in frequency, which is also current topic, which is quite actual. So there are always things to improve there as well. Yeah.
And Peter, anything on Entra? I think you mentioned already. We have a
Think
private chat, and you mentioned something.
Yeah, so I think on the 11th of July, so that's after the last recording, they created a new SKU, new suite, Microsoft Entra suite with Microsoft Entra private access, the Entra internet access, Entra ID governance, Entra ID protection is being moved there, and also the verified ID. So a lot of new features, but also existing features that are added to a new suite, so a new license.
And Joost, taking on Entra, any topics?
No, I've seen some stuff coming in for APIs. for the FIDO keys, but I have to check for it how it's going to work. But it's going to add several possibilities for the flow for the users to make it more simple. So
Yeah,
that's a good one.
there's a community tool of a community module you can use as DS internals, I think, to provision yeah, FIDO keys for your end users upfront, which is really neat. And it's a community module, but it's using the APIs.
Nice.
Yeah.
With that,
I do wonder whether we are really waiting for that. I do understand that the business requires us to do the provisioning, but in the end, I think still the flow with the temporary access pass and users doing the provisioning themselves is the I think a better way, because then we also force them to protect the final security key using their PIN or biometric methods, of course. But again, this will help to do the adoption of the FIDO2 security keys for the better in the end. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah,
Kenneth, how many organizations are really using temporary access pass at the moment?
a lot,
Well, yeah.
and too
Well,
much, because it's also a huge security risk, temporary
yeah,
access pass.
indeed.
So
So it's like a medal with two sides. In the end, it will help us to do the passwordless onboarding. So we fully understand that. We see on the misuse part, we see now the option to create a login without MFA, used, for example, to do autopilot provisioning to the desktop and make sure that the device is correctly configured before it's being handed over to the end user. In the end, yeah, I do wonder whether if you want to accomplish that, whether autopilot is the way to go in that way. So it can also be used to circumvent other things that you want to accomplish.
Yeah. Okay, that was regarding the Entra part. What about Intune, Joost? What was for you? I think since our last recording, the most important announcement done within Intune.
For me, it's Windows attestation part. So that's an extra check if our certificates from MDM, so the piece is connecting all the dots, is being onboarded on our devices and secured in our TPM chipset. There's a report for it. You can check if it's already attested, or you have to reattest it. And with that attestation, we can create a new filter to don't allow users to onboard their devices with MDM. So it's an extra step for our security reasons. So I think it's a big one,
Yeah,
especially now with there's no possibility anymore, and that's already for a longer time since I think the last year or the year before. So we cannot export our private keys from the MDM certificate. So it's a big prey. That's the biggest one for me.
And Peter,
I have a couple of things, but I think if we look at endpoint privilege management, part of Intune Suite, there are some neat enhancements. So you can now also use EPM to elevate PowerShell scripts, but also MSIs. But something really neat is that you now can go to the elevation report and then click on an elevation which is done by the user, and then basically create a rule from there. And back in the days, the product isn't that old, but when we were starting with it, you needed to create the rules manually, you needed to look for the hashes or the name or whatsoever you want to put in the rule. Now you can basically create it via a wizard, which is, I think, pretty neat. And another thing, mainly for MDM, iOS, and Android, is for troubleshooting that you can basically remove applications and policies from the Intune admin center to make sure that troubleshooting may happen more quickly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
remove your
I
apps
think
from the
that
admin
can really
center.
help.
Yeah.
Sorry, Frans?
Remove your apps from the admin center by the user itself, or is
No,
that
no, it's
done?
more from the device, so that you can remove a policy and then reapply the policy remotely, and basically the same for apps. An
Yeah, yeah.
installation of an iOS app, for instance, on your device or on multiple devices.
Nice. And Kenneth, do you have
Yeah,
some announcements?
couple of things. We see now that, of course, the logging is going to change. So we see now that application installations actually get their own log, so not within the Intune management extension log, which is, in my opinion, I think a big improvement, because it was always a matter of finding the needle in the haystack, to say so. Um, Further, yeah, I had some customers being happy with the fact that now the managed home screen for Android is also available on managed devices, so
Fully
that we
managed
can create
devices.
like a corporate look on our Android devices.
Yeah, but the
Um,
managed home screen was already available for kiosk, but
Kiosk
now
devices,
it's
indeed, yeah, and now it's also available for fully managed devices. Yeah, and further, I think Microsoft is also really stepping up when it comes to Apple iOS management. So more and more settings in the settings catalog, yeah, being provisioned there. So if I look at what I currently configure, almost everything is possible in the settings catalog now. So we don't have to provide mobile config or plist files in order to do the configuration, which makes it easier to understand for somebody looking at the policies as well. Yeah, and so there's a lot going on. Also with Intune, small improvements every time, making our lives as people working with the product even better. So,
and I saw some announcements regarding Linux. There is now Linux support for Red Hat Enterprise 8 and 9. I thought I saw that somewhere. Is that
yeah.
is that something that will be used? Probably. Do you see that in the field?
Not really. I think that there will be some institutions who want to have their devices maybe managed by Linux, but again, it will always, or it will actually start with a sort of light management.
Yeah.
Of course, when looking at, for example, conditional access, we can, for example, check on whether the device is compliant and use that in, for example, to allow access to company resources. For that, I maybe see the biggest use case for now. So if you have like a couple of Linux devices who you want to be part of the environment and you want to provide some protection, maybe having a look at whether compliancy can help in combination with conditional access will be the first use case to start implementing. And that can start with a simple version checker and maybe some other checks. So based on what the functionality is, but to be honest, I don't have any customers doing this Linux management with Intune at the moment. Maybe Joost and Peter or you have seen it, Frans, but not at my customers at the moment.
Not that often, but hopefully with the larger support of Linux operating systems, that will be more in the future probably. But let's see what happens there. Another thing within Intune, what is a good enhancement in my opinion, is the consolidation of the profiles for identity protection and account protection. There was some similarity within settings in different views, and I think it's good that we combine that and consolidate that kind of stuff, because it helps the admins to do the stuff right on one single place and not on multiple places.
Yeah, well, it's actually a good point that you have now. But what we see now within Intune that there are actually more ways to do the same thing. We started, of course, with the old way of doing stuff, device configuration, etc. we now transition towards settings catalog. Sometimes we can use CSP, sometimes we can use GPO ingestion or maybe other methods. And I believe that we need to keep up. So if, for example, you still have old policies and you are able to transition to settings catalog, that should be part of your job as well. But again, I'm working with the product on a daily basis. I can understand that other customers are not doing that, but we can wait for the announcement of Microsoft telling, hey, we're not going to support the old way anymore, and you need to transition towards settings catalog. And again, I don't have any dates. I have no inside information on what the plans are there. But now the fact that we have multiple ways to configure devices, either from the configuration or for the endpoint security part, doesn't make it easier to understand, in my opinion. On the other hand, I think we should configure the settings where they should supposed to be. So if it's security related and we can configure it there, I currently configure it there as well. So that's important remark I think to make.
Kenneth,
Anything to
to
add,
go a
Peter?
little bit further on your remark about multiple places where you can configure things. I've seen a tweet a couple of weeks ago about the fact that Microsoft will be blocking the CSPs if they are available in the settings catalog. So they will try to force customers to make use of the settings catalog instead of all the different CSPs. And I think we will add the link to that tweet in. It's even also in the plan for change. We will add the link to the description of this recording.
But for the listeners' understanding, there are even some security baselines which are provided by CSP only.
Yep.
So some customers actually implemented their security settings by simply importing the CSPs provided by the assessment provider in that case.
Yeah,
So again, don't get me wrong. I really like the settings catalog, but in the end, it's nothing more than like a wrapper around multiple ways to do settings on the Windows endpoint, which mainly has to do with the fact that, of course, Windows itself doesn't support some settings set via CSP, and therefore we need to be able to fall back to the old administrative templates way of working. But especially when you have a possible conflict, it can become quite interesting quite fast.
Yep.
So therefore, make sure that you have a structured way of working and know which settings you set in order to determine that you don't have any conflicting settings. Because conflicts, when it comes to the same setting in CSP and ADMX, it's not necessarily so that those are detected by the Intune portal, where you normally, when you do conflicting setting, it's actually being reported.
Yeah, and talking about the security baselines, and there was an updated, enhanced security baseline for Windows 365 from Intune for our cloud PC. So that's a good one in my opinion.
I want to give Kenneth
I
the room.
have another opinion about that, but I'm not going to share it here.
That was what I was looking for. These kind of discussions, but probably looking back on a previous recording that we did on the security baseline, maybe you have to look into that if you want to know what kind of things are on our opinions on the security baseline.
Well, there are some things I can share. For example, we have now a new security baseline, 23H2, being provided by Microsoft.
Yeah.
Actually, Joost and I spent a lot of time to actually go through all the settings and transform them to settings catalog for multiple reasons. But we actually found out that some settings are actually less secure compared to the older security baseline. And what the reasoning is behind that, I have no clue about that. But it's nice that Microsoft provides the security baselines. But I think in the end, especially with people like us working with Intune on a daily basis, we really need to know the why of the security baselines. And while Microsoft is really good at explaining what the security baseline is and why they are doing the settings, sometimes the why is hard to understand.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I think the baseline, the word says it's a good baseline to start with, but be critical about what you want to allow and don't want to allow in your environment. Where maybe Microsoft, when it comes to security baselines, sometimes also has to take into account maybe the risk for the end customers just doing the click, click, click and assigning it to all devices, which could eventually break something. So but be critical and I think that the minimal thing you should do when implementing the security baseline is actually go through all the settings and know what's coming.
Yeah.
True.
Any other things that we didn't mention on the Intune part?
Maybe the advanced analytics part. There's a new performance analytics piece in it where we can see the CPU and the memory load on devices. So it can help already investigate if there are any devices who needs to be replaced or anything else, or is there any spikes we need to take care of when using different applications and that kind of stuff. So everything in analytics would be helpful to get things done.
Yeah, and I read, Joost, that we are actually getting an UI refresh for the company portal app. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
There's a new one coming up. It's a real overhaul. It's going to be a nice looking one.
Nice.
Well, of
So
course,
let's wait.
what's nice looking is always it depends, of course, but I think in a couple of years it can use a refresh, to say so. On the other hand, I think it's still difficult to make users aware of the fact that the company portal is there. And I think we should maybe have some better ways to make it more prominently available by default. So, for example, by integrating it more into the OS itself. For example, when you go to add apps and have a link to the company portal there, or maybe the option to say, well, I want the company portal to be in the quick launch, or maybe more prominent in the start menu, to say so. Because also when it comes to, for example, getting new policies or maybe checking compliance, having access to the company portal app, of course, is very important.
Yeah. Last part, because we already are running a bit out of time. Last part is the security defender, for example. Are there any specific topics that we need to cover?
Well, also there's a lot going on.
A lot.
Yeah, for me, I think what was really helpful for me, the fact that Microsoft Edge, which we now more and more see as actually, it's becoming more and more an important app where actually the security functionality distincts it from using other Chromium-based browsers. And for example, where we now see that if you're using Defender for Cloud Apps and especially the reverse proxy functionality, that we can now make Microsoft Edge aware of that, where if you start using Defender for Cloud Apps and the reverse proxy functionality, where normally the URL of the app that you were accessing was ending in mcast.ms, that's now not necessary anymore within Microsoft Edge. And therefore, the chances that applications are actually going to work when being reverse proxies is actually way better. And also for the user, visually nothing changes.
Yeah.
So, and that combined maybe with mobile application management for Microsoft Edge, I think we are getting somewhere there. The only disadvantage when it comes to having users log in on a non-managed device within the Edge browser is that nasty pop-up asking you whether you want the company to manage the device. And that is actually coming from the OS. And that, in my opinion, should be is the first thing on my list of to be removed from the OS.
Yeah, I think if we look at the security features, Microsoft is putting a lot of effort in, for example, Defender for Cloud Apps, and that's more or less also the Edge for Business functionality where you're talking about.
Yeah,
But I think what you're already saying, mobile application management on Windows with these kind of features is moving forward. It's not on the finish line, but it's moving forward, and I think that's a good one, good thing, because we are missing some parts in managing web applications, mobile applications on Windows, on the mobiles, iOS and Android. It's quite on a certain level that we can use that, but on Windows, it can have some improvements, in my opinion.
yeah, indeed. But the same the mobile application management, for example, having it on non-managed macOS devices would be a huge addition
Yeah,
as well. So, and again, not saying anything about the roadmap or anything else going on, but I think Microsoft, the way that they position Microsoft Edge, is a good way forward, to say so. Yeah.
yeah. And on the other hand, they are putting a lot of effort in Defender for Office. They have some challenges, so to say, in the last year. They moved into a new detection system, and with that, yeah, we have some things. But now there are also features coming on, like security analysts. Quite often they use advanced hunting, and now they have the ability to move an email directly from the advanced hunting into the user's mailbox. So in the previous stage, they need to go into the portal and release that message for a certain user.
Yeah.
They can now do that directly from advanced hunting, and I think from managed services that some companies here in the Netherlands, but also in other countries, have that service. They can use that in a much better way than before.
Yeah,
So a
yeah,
lot.
it's a quite interesting remark that you are making, Frans, because yesterday, Sander, one of our workplace ninja colleagues, and I did a session at the Identity Summit in Cologne in Germany. And well, we were talking about automation and stuff. And after the meeting, somebody approached me and said, "Can't you accomplish the same by using Copilot at the moment?" And the interesting part of that is that we are now seeing all kinds of solutions where maybe in the end they don't have to be developed anymore because Copilot can start helping us with that as well. Yeah?
Yeah,
And so it will be really interesting to see what Windows Copilot for Security will actually add to the game and what consequences that will have for functionality to be released in the future.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
and especially when it comes to making the life of the hunter or maybe the stock analyst easier, I think things like an AI and or a co-pilot can really help, not really to solve things, but maybe to uh, yeah, make the frequency of solving things lower, so that things where you would normally spend 1 hour to actually find things out, you
Yeah,
can now actually get the answer within seconds, to say so.
yeah, absolutely. It's a really interesting story to follow for the next few months, a year, so to say.
Yeah,
And I think let's do that, and let's inform our listeners on that in the future as well. Um, Peter, Joost, anything for you on the security part?
There's a lot,
no,
but no, not for me this time.
Now, I've one other thing that I want to mention within Defender for Office, for example. I work quite a lot with attack simulation in Defender for Office, and what we see in the last few months, that QR code phishing is coming through more and more, and the QR code payloads are now active in preview in the attack simulation training within Defender for Office, and I think that's good to train our users on the stuff that can happen every day. Yeah, and that's good that the QR code payloads that they have been added to that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see how this cat and mouse game evolves. And once you think that you are finished, the next challenge is actually coming up.
Yeah.
So being in this field of work is actually challenging day by day. Yeah.
Yeah, and luckily, if you're looking at Defender for Endpoint, we have Defender for Endpoint on Windows. We have it on mobile. It's quite a while ago in May. Defender for Endpoint for Windows subsystem for Linux. We have already Linux, but we have also Windows subsystem for Linux. That's general available since of May, and I think that one is good because a lot of users using Linux as well on the Windows laptop with WSL, and I think it's good that is protected as well.
Looking at it, it's good that Microsoft has a broader vision on the endpoint ecosystem and is aware of the fact that not only Windows is used. On the other hand, when we are talking about amounts of users on the platform, I think we can still say that Windows, of course, is maybe the mostly used OS in that case. Second by iOS and Android devices, where of course mobile apps are being used in order to access things like company data and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I have one more thing.
Yeah, one more thing.
What we have seen and within Defender for Endpoint is actually some extra focus currently based to the recent outages by what was the company name again?
CrowdStrike.
CrowdStrike, indeed. Thanks, Joost. And actually, today I saw an article from Microsoft also advising customers to do the rollout of the Defender updates using deployment rings as well.
Yeah.
So I will look up that article and share it for the viewers as well. But if you are not doing rollouts in a granular way in your organization, and you risk a similar situation when Microsoft releases a bad update. So make sure that you are prepared for that, and that if an update is being released, you do maybe a canary rollout or the way that you would like to call it. I don't care, but make sure that that if possible, that you roll out to a small group first before doing the rollout to maybe a larger group within your organization.
Yeah,
let's learn from the mistakes we are making and improve.
Yeah, and luckily Microsoft doesn't have that impactful updates in the last few years. But on the other hand, there were some minor impact updates that we have.
Well, for many companies, the update removing the shortcut links, the LNK files, were actually was quite an impact at the moment that it occurred.
Yeah,
and again, that was also a bad update. So.
And that can be you can manage that if you are using update rings, so it will be tested up front.
Yeah,
okay.
you can. Again, you have, of course, no guarantee. There can be an update which is applicable to anyone, and it can still do something about that. But again, thinking about it up front is way better than smashing your head afterwards that you could have prevented or maybe could have lessened the impact of a change like this. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Thanks for this recording. Thanks for all the information that we had passed through to our listeners, viewers. And if you, as a viewer, if you like this recording, please like and subscribe our recordings. And with that, thanks, guys. I say until the next time. And that is on the MFA stuff for admins. That will be our next video. Thanks for watching.